You've just entered the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker. If you've come for actual legal advice, you need to turn right around, honey. You need to get out of here, 'cause you ain't gonna get none of that. They quibble, and they squabble, and they bicker. But if you want to hear meaningless opinions, this is the right place. They got plenty of that. Stuff that makes no sense at all. They go off on tangents. It's crazy talk. If that's your thing, keep listening. They'll keep talking. All right, it is July 15th, 2020, and we're back with the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker with Matt, Greg, and Brendan. And again, if you don't know who we are, eventually you'll learn that you don't want to know who we are. That being the case, we have a new client today. Our new client is Sex Sells Always. So, with that in mind, maybe we should go into like a history of like where did this concept come from. And now I looked into this a little bit, and apparently the first real movement for using sex in advertising goes back to about 1871, where a tobacco company called Pearl Tobacco featured a naked woman on their package cover. And then later on, about 14 years later, another company inserted trading cards into cigarette packs that featured starlets that were sexually provocative. So it's kind of interesting how that all started. So obviously, even back then, well, I guess especially back then, you're throwing some nudity into things when people were wearing clothing that was a lot less revealing than it is today. Um, I wonder if it actually moved any of the cigarettes. Obviously, that cigarette company doesn't exist anymore. So I guess they could only sell sex of old women at a certain point. And then
Do you think that could have been R.J. Reynolds for all you know, or do you know the name of the company? Could
it's
have
the
that
Pearl Tobacco, Pearl Tobacco brand was
they
the
might have
name.
been gobbled up in the
And
whole
then after that,
tobacco
then the ones who did the trading
The Great
cards was
Tobacco
combine?
Merger.
Yeah.
Duke.
I would have bought. I just want to say I would have bought those cigarettes.
Hell
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Oh yeah.
would you have smoked them?
Oh, I would have smoked the hell out of them. I mean, as a smoker, I think Greg can agree. One cigarette to the next, yeah, there's a little bit of difference. Especially light to regular. But
Yeah.
if there was a naked lady on it, that's metal. I would have smoked those cigarettes.
Metal,
Metal.
like a
It's
metal you
awesome.
wear.
It's rad.
Oh, it's like, oh, okay. I didn't realize metal
Dude.
was used in that way.
No, but back then, imagine how rare it was to see a naked lady. This now it's just like, yeah, wow, a naked lady.
Yeah,
I can
they're
look on
all
my
roaming
phone
the
anytime.
streets of the late 1800s, weren't they?
They weren't. It was so rare to see even a woman's ankle or her wrist.
Yeah,
That was provocative.
you think about how ballsy that was for that company. I mean, yeah, because that's right. It's like nowadays, it's like it would be no big deal, but back then,
Well, I think back then also women weren't the major target audience for cigarette brands either. It was more of a male
Not at
thing.
all.
I don't think women
They
were
didn't
smoking.
smoke.
Late 1800s, I think they probably
No.
did. I mean,
I think it happened in the flapper era. That's what I've always heard.
The
It's like during the
1920s?
Roaring Twenties. That's when women were like daring enough to smoke.
There's probably some beforehand. Some
Oh,
of
I'm sure.
the pioneer types. In the
There was
late,
definitely a few.
especially that's like right after the Civil War. So you figure there's a lot of people smoking to get over all of the death that had happened in the last 10 years. It's
I
like,
hear Harriet Tubman was a big smoker, big chain smoker.
Cigar smoker.
I think she was one of the
Big
first
stogies.
cards in that trading cards assortment.
Ooh, how rare and how expensive would a naked Harriet Tubman card be worth today?
I tell
Wow.
you, that would be definitely a collector's item. However, it would certainly give a completely different perspective on the Underground Railroad at that stage.
Well, you know what?
Which
The
didn't
Underground
exist anymore.
Railroad.
Which didn't exist.
Oh,
Probably,
God.
it makes me think, it's like, when did the Underground Railroad end? So there was the movement of, did it end with the end of the Civil War? Did it
Yeah.
end with the Emancipation Proclamation? Was it somewhere in the middle?
I think it
No.
ended when the Civil War ended because there was like still slaves, so they needed to be transported to a safe place.
Right, but it's still, they're all going off to war, so the slaves had the legal authority to walk off their plantations.
After the war, yeah. So that's
Well, I
when
mean,
it
I'm
wasn't
saying
needed.
even before the war, because the proclamation was kind of the trigger for the
No,
war,
but that
wasn't
was the Confederacy didn't respect that proclamation. That was an enemy nation made it. The United States of America said, "We're
it? Right.
doing the Emancipation
But
Proclamation."
but
They said, "Fuck you."
the slaves could have still taken off if they
They
wanted to.
could. They
Yeah, but
couldn't though. Their
but maybe
laws said they couldn't. The
right,
Confederacy laws.
maybe they still needed the Underground Railroad just from a
To get them over the
sa-
border.
safety perspective. If you're just
Oh yeah. Well, I mean,
a random slave dude
that's a
walking
whole
down the road.
that's
No, it
a
wasn't good to be a freed black in 1870, but they could have just moved to Chicago if they wanted to. I don't think, as racist as the South was, they weren't like, you can't go, you got to
well.
stay here and
You
be
can't
persecuted
go
by
now.
us.
No, according
Yeah.
to
Like
lying,
Foghorn Leghorn, head out, boy. You can't be going there
Hey,
no more.
according to
I
lo-
say, I say. That was my Foghorn Leghorn. Sorry.
according to lying Wikipedia, the Underground Railroad was secret routes and safe houses that were used during the early to mid 19th century. So mid 19th century, I guess, is kind of broad. It's kind of like ish to
It's
a degree.
1865. I bet you. The end of the
Um,
Civil War when slavery was abolished.
yeah, there's actually a book that was written in 1872, which is called The Underground Railroad's Records. And so I'm assuming that it was no longer underground at that point.
I
Well,
found
they were
one
just talking
called
about the history of it.
Sexy Times in the Underground Railroad. Have you seen that book? It's a coffee table book.
That doesn't
It's
sound very
funny. I
erotic to
just
me.
came across a picture of Harriet Tubman, and she's definitely not naked.
I
And
can
that's probably
imagine
a good
needing
thing.
I can
Yeah.
imagine needing a sock for that book, Brendan. No sock would be required.
No, that's a zero sock on a scale of 1 to 5 socks. That's a zero sock book.
Yeah, when you talk about sex selling, I don't think they needed sex to sell the Underground Railroad. Um, although maybe it was used in some cases to get some people to different safe houses or to prevent somebody from being captured here on occasion. But let's get back into the advertising concept of
Yeah.
sex sells. I think we're like walking a very fine line here of utter offense to somebody somewhere, and might want to get that like it matters to us. Anyway,
I
so
concur,
there
my
was
colleagues.
a facial soap. So this is an example of when sex sold very, very well. So there was this soap called Woodbury's Facial Soap, and it was almost
Facial.
discontinued in 1911. Yeah, facial soap. It's a woman's beauty bar, and the
Beauty
sales
bar.
decline was reversed when they used ads that had images of romantic couples and promises of love and intimacy for those using the brand. And then there was a musk oil in '71, Jovan musk oil, where they was promoted with sexual entendre and descriptions of the fragrance's sexual attraction properties. So that company's revenue grew from 1.5 million in '71 to 77 million by '78. So the question, I guess, is it the sex that sold it, or was it the efficacy of the soap itself that sold it? Was sex the initial walking in point, where it's like they got people's attention, and then they tried the product and they moved on? I mean, because I know a lot of cases when they're using overly sexual branding, you can forget entirely what the product is.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I mean, with the people, there's a concept where people are numbed to the actual message because all they're viewing is the sexual part of it, and they don't see anything else. Like I remember there was some ad I saw where it was just like a nearly naked woman's body, and in the lower right-hand corner was a picture of like the shampoo or something. Very small though. You'd have to like literally look hard for it to see if it existed. And so it makes me go, well, what the hell's being sold here if they're not really highlighting the product at all? And
Yeah.
not going to look at that thing if they're focusing on the woman, unless it's from the point of view of like, oh, there's a nearly naked woman here, and there must be some other reason why it's here. So I'll go looking around and see this bottle in very tiny print where I can barely make out what the company's name is or what the
This
product
brings
name.
up something about advertising I've been confused about for years, where obviously advertising works.
Hmm.
Corporations wouldn't spend billions of dollars over the past century doing it.
Some
I can't
advertising
believe it.
works. Yeah.
I can't believe it works as much as it does, because those vague commercials that are just kind of funny, and at the end it'll show Geico. And it's like, I can't imagine watching that and thinking like, I'm going to get Geico tomorrow. And like, I'm amazed that advertising even works, but apparently it does. Like
Well,
you can have a naked woman and a bottle of a shampoo. Somehow it sticks in people's brains. And like next time they're at the store, they'll be like, they have a pleasing reaction to seeing that bottle because they saw a hot naked woman or maybe a naked man.
well, the
And are
reason
like,
it becomes effective, to answer your question, is the number of times that you see the message. In other words, the first time you see it, it's probably not going to register as strongly as the 1 millionth time that you have seen it. For example,
yeah.
the Geico ads with the gecko in it, and all their other weird freaking ads that Geico does. Most of which have nothing to do with their product. But they will. There is that tagline that they have, and it's a cute little thing. And obviously, it's also a naked gecko, so perhaps there's some sex being
Ah,
sold there as well. If
people who are
you
into geckos.
if you're sexually attracted to the gecko, apparently Brendan is. He raised his hand in an audio program for everyone to hear the movement of the wind.
Can you just imagine those sticky little fingers? You know what I'm saying?
That could do a lot.
They can climb up a wall. Come on.
You get your own gecko sock, Greg.
It is a very he is a very attractive gecko. You got to admit.
He's
Of all
a
the
handsome
geckos I've ever
gecko.
seen,
The interesting thing is that obviously in a marketplace like soap, being prior to my career as a lawyer, being in the advertising world,
Fake
if
lawyer.
you get fake lawyer,
Yes.
if you get your if you set aside a set of products, sex can be one of the things that differentiates you. So in soap, you have say ivory, which is pure and natural and this sort of thing, and you have oil of Olay, which is good for your skin. At a certain point, some brand has got to go, okay, well, we can't take this position, we can't take that position, let's try the sex position. And if no one has already sort of carved that out,
Wait, which sex position?
whichever you like,
Okay.
missionary,
anything
Okay.
from the Kama Sutra,
Anything.
whatever.
anything.
Okay.
But
Wheelbarrow.
That's
Wheelbarrow.
Matt's favorite, the wheelbarrow, apparently.
okay. So anyway, my point is that soap and things like that, like what was it? I hated these commercials. They were definitely selling sex. Was the Axe body spray? Do you guys remember those
Right.
ads?
Yeah.
Don't they still exist? Or
I'm sure they do. I haven't noticed them as much, maybe because I don't watch TV as much. But man,
Those guys were pretty hot. They were some good-looking men.
was it
With
men
the
that they were
shirts off?
promoting on those? Oh
Yeah,
yeah, right.
actually,
I
it
guess
was
so.
they were promoting to men by the asinine idea that you sprayed this shit
Oh,
on you,
yeah.
and then these chicks would just like you were a chick magnet.
Flock to you, yeah.
Right.
Like pheromone spray. Like you were like
Right.
spitting out pheromones. They couldn't resist you.
Exactly.
See, that makes sense to me. That is actually like, people are dumb. They might see that and be like, maybe that works. But I'm talking about the advertising that's vague or just like, it is a funny thing. Like, I grew up watching Time to Make the Donuts from Dunkin' Donuts,
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember ever once seeing that commercial and thinking like, oh, God, I could really use a Bavarian cream right now. I'm going tomorrow to Dunkin' Donuts. I don't remember ever.
Because you had a sock. You didn't need a
No,
Bavarian. You didn't need to create your own filling, Greg.
oh, my Lord.
Oh.
But I know this is getting away from sex sales, but I just want to say that advertising is like this nebulous, weird thing. I still don't understand how it works. It seems so. I get like advertising a new product, like, hey, there's a new movie. Here's some clips from it. You might be interested. Now you know what the gist of this movie is. You might want to see it. And I have seen movie ads where I'm like, I want to see that movie.
Did
Well,
you
I've
see
seen
it after seeing the ad once, or after seeing it a number of times where it stayed in your
see,
mind?
It depends. It's just seeing it once and like, that sounds like a cool thing. Whoa, from the director of this movie that Greg Pettick's once liked. I'm paraphrasing. They didn't really say that. But
Director Greg Pettick's
That just so you know,
But
that
sex
kind of
ads-
personalized advertising is coming, where
yeah,
they'll know that
happening.
you watched this movie and you
on
like
the
this
internet.
movie.
Oh, that's
there.
like straight out of Minority Report.
Mhm.
Yeah, but sex ads
When
like
they were like walking down the hallway, and they would take eye scans of you to identify who you were, and they immediately changed the ad that you were walking by to communicate directly to you.
That
like you have bought
technology,
this before at the mall.
that technology is not that far off.
No, I think it's
Not
here.
at all.
Is it-
I don't think they've implemented it just because it's so goddamn terrifying.
Yeah,
I guess it's a
But
matter of like what you want to be afraid of.
but getting back to sex sales advertising, I I can't imagine. I've seen some hot commercials when I was a little kid, and there's barely any porn out there. I used to have to
So it
watch
was like
Benny Hill and
sauce
Solid Gold
commercials. Oh,
for porn. But the Bain de Soleil commercial, remember that? Bain de Soleil in the San Tropez. It was
what? Wait.
amazing.
Wait, could you sing that again?
Bain de Soleil, I think, was
No,
the
I
name of
want
the
you to
Sun
sing
Channel.
the song again.
Bain de Soleil for the San Tropez 10. And it was this gorgeous, like exotic European looking woman in a bikini.
Uh-huh.
And I definitely
Did she
liked that
sing the
commercial.
song too? Or?
No, she was just like lounging around in a chair looking very sexy. It never made me say like, oh, I'm going to get some Bain de Soleil. Yeah, I mean, I bought socks because of that, because I needed them. So I was dirtying all my socks up constantly. But
I
yeah,
kind of remember. You know what, Greg? I kind of remember that commercial. It's vague, but once you
it was
sang
very
it,
sexy.
there was something that stirred in me, but I don't have a visual.
Something stirred in
And
me.
then he saw the stew commercial, and it all became clear. It was
The stew
sex
commercial?
selling. Yeah, it was like Dinty Moore.
Dinty Moore, yeah, that sexy commercial they had.
Going
Where a
back
woman
to
poured it on her breasts. Oh, Dinty Moore stew.
Potatoes.
Lick it
Like
off.
poured over her head, potatoes sticking to her eyelashes.
I could do stew porn. I think I could. But
I'm looking that up on RedTube tomorrow.
I bet it's probably there. It's probably there. But here's the thing that I find interesting, and I'm not suggesting this is 100% true, but this is just an observation, and that is that when you talk about sex sales, like I think you mentioned the shampoo, Matt. So they have this sexy woman, and it's selling shampoo. That shampoo is obviously for other women. It's not for men. Unlike my Axe body spray idea or reminder, whatever. So it's interesting that it seems that female sexuality sells products to females, but I can't think of any examples necessarily of male sexuality being used to sell products to men.
Well, Axe body spray does. Some of their ads are just a guy with his shirt off, looking all sexy, and it's like...
Yeah, there's that example. Is there another one that anyone can think of?
Well, I think I missed the concept.
What about Aquaman? The Aquaman TV show. The ad was just him with his shirt off. This guy was known. He wasn't a good actor.
Wait, you saw the Aquaman TV show?
Yeah,
like
he had
with the guy with the orange.
No, he didn't. He had a naked chest, and he had a very good pectoral six-pack. A lot of people, I read articles that said it was watched because it was a very sexy ad. If you're a woman or a gay man, it was like.
When did this TV show come out?
It was after the whole all those DC shows on UPN and shit. It had a spinoff, I think.
An Aquaman TV show? There was an Aquaman
Maybe I'm
movie,
thinking of Green
but
Arrow. Sorry, I'm thinking of Green Arrow. Green Arrow had a shirtless ad.
Green Arrow, Aquaman.
Arrow. It's called, right?
Aquaman.
The first ads were just him with the shirt off.
You're like a comic book reader, and you can't get your freaking comic.
I don't watch those shitty
right?
shows. I actually read comic books, Matt. I don't watch the shitty shows based on them. Sorry. I read the good comic books, and they turn them into shitty
ones, Greg.
Some of them are shitty. I do read them too, but
they've made too many of them for them to be majority good.
I've actually read the fact that that Arrow, that was a very successful ad campaign because a lot of people were like, I don't like superhero shows, but who the fuck is this guy with this amazing six-pack and pecs that were he was a really good-looking guy, with his shirt off.
Well, I watched I think the first couple of seasons, and whether or not he wore his shirt on, he was incredibly athletic, the actor himself, because they would show the sequence of when he was working out, and he did these things which generally you only see on those Ultimate Gladiator type programs. And I went, wow, he can actually hold his own with those guys. That's rare it's rare for an actor to be that athletic. And so I think that added to the credibility of the character.
Yeah.
But did that sell the show? I don't know. It's a comic book program, and there's other comic book programs that have done well without any sexualization whatsoever.
By their quality, and I think sex always adds something to it. Just look at film. Every movie you've ever seen, most of the people are attractive. It helps. It could be a great movie or a mediocre movie, but people like to go to movies, and i.e. commercials. They like to see attractive people. It's aesthetically pleasing.
So
Sure. No one wants to buy something from an ugly person.
yeah,
That's
but
for
what
sure.
about the
Exactly.
popularity of like the Walking Dead owners? Like a majority of really ugly,
There's some good looking people. That's
good
not
looking
true.
zombies. The
No, the
zombies are
zombies are horrible, but the
right.
main
That's my point, and
characters.
there's more of them than the actual actors. So
I know, but they don't get more screen time. They're just like every now and then they attack. But mostly you hear the main characters talk and interact
and
and
turn into zombies
fighting the
themselves
zombies.
too.
Yeah, sometimes they do, and then they're not so pretty anymore.
Right.
They lose a little
And then
glamour.
and then they get a
But that
spike
main
through the head.
sheriff guy, what's his name? The main guy in Walking Dead, the first whatever 7 seasons, he's a very handsome man. And oh god, what's the one with the samurai swords? She's
Oh yeah,
gorgeous.
she's
Uh,
hot.
I don't know what her
I
name
almost
is.
thought that Walking Dead was weird because it seemed like, oh, the only people who survive the zombie apocalypse are pretty attractive. Like, does that help you? Do zombies not like to eat attractive people as much as ugly people
Maybe
and
they
fat
don't
people?
taste as good. Maybe the
Yeah,
pretty
that's what I
ones
mean.
are less they're less
Yes.
tasty than us fat ugly ones.
Because there was
Good.
that season where the survivalist dude, you know, the really macho army guy with his like super hot girlfriend. She was like 24. I think she was Latina or Latinx.
Oh yeah. The redhead guy and the girl.
She was
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a supermodel. She was so hot. And it was like, so these are the only people who have survived. Very attractive people. And all the ugly uggos have been eaten. The zombies prefer the uggos and the fatties.
Well, to get
Well,
to get
fatties
the-
would die. 'cause
The
they're
fat
slow.
ones that go fast because they
You're
can't
right.
run as
That's
fast.
true. That is
That's
true.
right.
Yeah.
To get back to advertising, because
Well, we're kind of still in advertising.
This is all part of it, I think.
The advertising of The Walking Dead,
right. So to answer your question, Matt, what I was talking about was
sexual zombies.
sexual zombies.
I've
And-
seen porn, zombie porn. It's true. It's a thing.
With real zombies.
Sorry, Brendan, to interrupt. I just had to interject there. There is
He's not-
zombie porn.
He's not really that sorry.
No, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
I really don't.
He doesn't want to
Zombie
give
porn.
us. He doesn't want to give us.
Let's just talk about zombie porn.
I'm not shitting you. I'm not making a little gag here.
Oh,
it's
I'm
really
sure.
true.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is it real zombies, Greg?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
How can you not?
It'd be better if it was. Otherwise, it's come on.
Yeah, it's just It's just cosplay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Brendan. Get back to your point. I apologize.
He doesn't remember what his point is anymore. He got
Oh,
distracted
fuck.
by zombie porn.
am
I was just my point was, because Matt asked the question, I was saying that it seems to me, disproportionately at least, that sex is used, and by that I mean feminine sexuality is used to sell products to females more so than masculine sexuality is used to sell products to men. Axe body spray, while kind of selling masculine sex, doesn't have just this gorgeous guy that comes on and go, I use Axe body spray.
So how are they using feminine sexuality to sell things to females? What would be an example of that?
Yeah, well, no, the example that Greg gave about the commercial that I can't remember, where they're selling some sort of beauty ad, and they're not showing a girl at the pool side like in an Axe body spray thing where all these guys are flocking to her necessarily. They're just showing this super sexualized female walking across the beach or coming into the restaurant or whatever, and they're promoting her and her sexuality, and you can achieve that if you use this soap or this shampoo or this whatever.
Okay, so it's
That's
not
crucial,
necessary.
I
So
think.
it's more like she's being looked upon as an example for other women to aspire to be in
Yes,
order
I
to
think that's
attract
it.
whatever particular partner that they'd be looking for.
Yeah.
Is that the basic concept there? Is that?
Yeah, but they're not showing her like doing calculations, or working on a computer or being an effective executive. They're
With
showing
a
her in
tan.
they're showing her in a skimpy outfit with
She
a
looks good in a
cocktail in her
bikini.
hand, and guys turning their heads and going, oh, she's a whatever female. She
So it
uses.
could still be being marketed to men because men would then want their women to use this product, as opposed to necessarily being marketed to women in that.
Yeah, if we were in the 1950s and guys were buying everything for the house, and Beaver Cleaver, Miss Cleaver was just at home, and he's like, "Use this shampoo, June." Yeah,
I don't care what you think.
I don't care
I
what
want
you
to
think.
use this suntan oil.
Yeah,
But
right.
you're
A
saying this is
commercial
like
that gave me a boner.
You were saying this is like the 1970s, though, right, Greg?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
So that's what I think
so
he's saying that.
that's the mid of the feminist movement, women's
Yeah.
liberation movement, was in the 70s. So there's still a lot of that going on. There's still a lot of major male misogyny and machismo happening, and so these things would be generally targeted to the men of the household because there were at that time still the basic breadwinners and the ones who
They
were
controlled the purse strings, if you
right
But
will.
but,
to a certain.
but that's suggesting that this advertising strategy died in the 1970s with Gloria
Yeah,
Steinem or
it
something. I'm saying
hasn't.
that's not the case.
Oh,
No.
They still sell that way online today.
well, I think these days because all sexual boundaries have been eliminated, everything's being sold to everybody sexually. So it's like it doesn't even matter anymore whether you're a man or woman. It's just a matter of like what equipment do you have and how will it be used and what product can we sell to you in order to make that happen. I don't
That's
even.
why. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I've got nothing
I
to
was
say.
just going to say that's why a huge part of my budget goes to buying new socks. I mean, there's just so much out there, and it's just like I can't keep up with
So,
the laundry.
but you're attracted to not only things that, not only attractive women, but attractive men and attractive geckos. We have found. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm pansexual.
It seems like you're cross-special.
We should reach out to sock manufacturers. Maybe I should reach out to like
Ooh.
Hanes.
You imagine the advertising campaigns that'll be coming out of that.
Think about it. I mean, if sex
Will
sells,
not stand on its own in a corner. Maintains itself after.
Doesn't get too crusty after 3
no, it'll
uses.
be like, Mom will never know.
And acts as a moisturizer.
Could I just say though, like I think we're talking about advertising, but in a way,
You think
sex,
we are?
Well, I guess we're not. We're talking about whatever strikes our fancy. But
Apparently.
sex always sold, like even before there was advertising, and like paintings in the Middle Ages, which
Uh-huh.
is such a prudish time. But there was plenty of nudes, and I'm sure those paintings sold more than the paintings
Were
that were
the Middle
nudes.
Ages a prudish time, though? I think it really just
I think for at
depends.
least mainstream culture, I'm sure the poor serfs were just like they didn't give a shit. They were like,
Yeah,
you
the
know.
serfs were always getting banged.
Yeah, they were just like, we got nothing. We might as well fuck and have a good time. It's free.
Well, and plus they were being taken
You don't need
advantage
money
of
to
by the
fuck.
royalty, too.
Yeah, but like mainstream culture, like the paintings, patronized arts, it was like there's many nudes back then, even though most people were very like, oh, nudes, that's wrong. But, they'd say it's Adam and Eve and there's a fig leaf. But you basically got to see more
I think-
nudity than you
I think-
ever saw.
I think
was kind of
civilization has gone
pornography.
through phases, though, regarding nudity.
Definitely. Like the
Yeah.
Greco-Romans were pretty cool with sexuality, obviously.
Right, because they did the Olympics in the nude. As a matter of fact, everybody listening, all three of us are in the nude right now, in case you didn't know.
I'm naked from the waist down, just so you know.
I'm basically naked from the neck up. So I just
Well,
thought
that as you should be.
I'd clarify that.
But I forgot to put like my shorts on because I was just hanging out, and I was like, "Yeah, but they can't see me. Who cares? It's hot."
Of course,
So
if
that
anybody
adds to the
actually
whole
ever sees
sexy-
the video of this, they'll realize that it is we probably all should be wearing masks. So,
I'm alone. I don't need to wear a mask. I'm quarantined in my house.
no, I'm saying if there ever was a video. If the
Oh,
video
just
footage
for-
ever- right, because I have somebody recruited to handle creating a YouTube channel for the podcast as well as dealing with the Patreon stuff. We don't make a lot of money here, so it's all like slave labor and volunteers. So let me see what's our statistics this week. We should make this a regular thing. Like we do like
Absolutely.
an announcement of how much money we've made. So this week we are at $1.22
That's a sock, right?
after a month. That's one sock.
You can buy a sock for $1.20.
You could
right?
get a pair at the
pack
dollar
of 'em.
store. You could get a pair at the dollar store for
Yeah.
$1.
I think we should hold out. I think we should
Right,
hold
we're
out.
holding that money is being held off for a pizza anyway, which
It's like a trust fund for
Greg
me.
can use for a sock
Yeah.
if he wants to.
You guys are my attorneys holding
So
my trust
we're
fund.
at 153 total plays, and interestingly enough, our most recent one has gotten more plays than the 3 episodes prior.
Really?
Yeah, the first episode is the one that has the most plays, but our most recent one has gotten more plays than the other 3, not combined, but, and I'm not saying they're like huge statistics. It's gotten 27 plays, and the last one, the week before, Song Lyrics only got 21. The two before that actually got 25 plays each, which was the most useful inventions parts 1 and 2. So, and even our trailer has gotten 13 plays, which is an odd thing.
Does that mean they got through the trailer and went, I forget this?
I don't know. It's just there's somebody decided to listen to the trailer.
It wasn't much of an investment. It was a minute long.
Yeah.
So,
But again, we're at $1.22. So at this rate, by the end of the year, Greg, you should have your, well, not this year, but by next July. By next
Yeah.
July.
How much does a pizza go for out in Portland?
I don't know. It depends
Well,
on
you know,
we
Domino's.
tried to define this before. We could get in
Yeah.
like those little frozen pizzas.
a Totino's for
Right.
$1.
And we would actually could buy one of those already, but he had essentially decided it was like a basic medium cheese pizza from Domino's. So that's what, about $6?
Yeah, $6-7.
Yeah.
Because that's a
$6.
luxury for me. I just get frozen pizzas when they're on super good sales, like $3 for a Safeway pizza. So even getting like a Domino's shitty pizza, which is shitty pizza, believe
Actually,
me,
you know, Domino's has been making some better pizza these days.
they have upped their games.
Yes.
I had some at work like a year ago. They bought us pizza, and I was like, Domino's isn't as bad as I remember.
No, it's not as bad as it used to be. There's still some crappy Domino's, but you know, it's been better.
Does Domino's have a sexy ad campaign?
I think it's when they took the Noid and they stripped him, and then they just threw pepperonis at him until he screamed.
And then he went down on a woman, and they showed it.
No,
No.
no, Greg, you had to
I
kind of
love
go.
that ad.
You had to
That
go
was the best
like
ad ever.
Getting
the
rid
whole
of the
other
Noid
direction.
was a bad move on Domino's. Now, Greg, when you get frozen pizzas at Safeway, are you going generic Safeway pizza or do you get Tortinos?
Usually,
or-
because they're very cheap, but every
Or
now
do you
and then
do
there's a good
Red
deal
Baron
on like
or-
DiGiorno. DiGiorno's a step up. So every now and then DiGiorno has a great sale. And I'm like, I'm going to buy one DiGiorno because it's like half off. It's
Yeah,
like
but that's
50%.
like you being, you know, Italian. It has an Italian name. That's why you go for the Giorno, because the Giorno's as pizza goes.
No, for frozen though, frozen pizza is not that good. The best frozen pizza in the world's
Yeah, that's
not
pretty
that
true.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Even
DiGiorno is definitely better.
Of the frozen pizzas at the grocery store, I'm going to go on the record and at DiGiorno, you know, they have probably the best pizzas.
Yeah.
So that's going to be
But
on
they're pretty pricey.
the Twitter, the tweet you're going to send to them that of all the frozen
Yeah,
pizzas
we'll get
you
a
guys have
commercial.
the best.
The
We
truth
already
is,
just did a commercial for them.
I don't know we're going to
There
get
you
any
have it.
sponsors, Greg, considering our content. I really, you know, I was reading about getting back to sex selling. That there's
you know what
this,
sponsor built Joe Rogan?
what's that?
The sponsor that Joe Rogan built his podcast on, at least in the
Blue
beginning.
Chew?
No,
I have-
Fleshlight.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Well, I do know a company that makes anal plugs, and it's called it's called Go Fuck Yourself, or something like that.
Of course.
You're not being funny.
it's-
You
it's-
really know
it's-
this.
No, I'm sorry.
company.
It's Glow Fuck Yourself because they're glow in the dark anal plugs.
Because
you
you
can
need
see
to be
him?
able to spot that across the room in the dark.
Yeah.
Yes, it's necessary in case
Oh, there you are.
you have to go to the hospital.
There's your anus.
They can't find it. But
If
no,
there's a power outage, I
a
can
friend of mine who
find
runs
you.
another podcast, which is called Emotional Weather Report, he also does something called Full Contact Karaoke, and one of his sponsors often has been this company, Glow Fuck Yourself, where they've given these plugs out as prizes to people. So I think they have a website, and they make different kinds. I think they made one with like Trump's picture on the end of it, and
I can't believe you're serious right now, but I believe you. But that's
yeah, no, it's a legitimate enterprise. This is somebody,
yeah.
and
I
apparently
was thinking
the guy is selling.
the reason I brought up the Joe Rogan thing as I was kind of heading back towards the socks.
Okay,
Like maybe there is some internet sock brand that we could approach, you know,
I know there.
that would be willing to be exploited from a sex sales perspective, as opposed to selling their socks as footwear.
Well, this is merely one episode of our show. This isn't like this is how the podcast is going to be done forever. Is that we'll constantly be talking about Greg's sock machinations.
Even worse things will be talked about, Matt. Believe me. We've done
Perhaps.
But
dog
hey,
fucking
I,
already.
you know, just a minute ago, yes, we learned about a special type of anal plug. So yeah, we do talk about things
It's
that
not
aren't
going to end
savory.
anytime soon. We'll be talking about the economy. That'll be a client, and somehow some naughty thing will come up.
Naughty thing. Yes, this is not
we're
for
Naughty.
going to talk
Oral
about the
sex will come
morality
up.
of postmodernism and what that means in today's society. I don't really think that's our podcast. I had my wife listen to about 2.5 minutes, and she said, "Oh no, I'm not going to listen to that."
the postmodern one or our
No,
actual.
ours.
Oh,
I
right.
said, "Well, we're not Sam Harris. I get it, but
Who's Sam Harris?
Sam Harris is a very famous podcaster.
Oh, okay.
Talks about ethics and morality, and
Oh, yeah, we're definitely not that.
Boring.
I mean, that was a concern of mine whenever I came up with this particular client of sex sells always, is how we have the potential of really getting boring with this particular topic, and luckily we've moved off into other areas.
Wait, can I come back to the topic?
No, never.
Okay, because I found it
Why are
fascinating
you
that,
asking
like,
for permission?
the one thing about American culture, like, we have this Puritan base to our core. We were founded by, like, the Pilgrims and these religious dissenters who were very puritanical.
Yes.
And yet, the one
Well, it's
thing that
because
makes
they
me...
were Puritans, Greg.
Yes, and it has kind of
They wouldn't be
infected...
puritanical, they would be Puritans. It's like the
Yeah,
exact thing.
but I think that
Not
has
like
infected,
a Puritan, they are Puritans.
that has infected the American consciousness since our founding. And yet, why I'm not that scared, like, we'll end up like Handmaid's Tale, because I think sex will win. And they don't like sex, but everyone likes sex. So sex sells, because deep down, even people who admit they think they don't like it and try to say, like, oh no, I don't like pornography. Everyone watches pornography.
Who said we were going to wind up like Handmaid's Tale?
I'm sometimes scared of that when I see these crazy evangelicals passing these laws about abortion. I'm just like, fuck, what the hell's going on? But I think in the end, that sex is such a powerful thing in our imaginations. And it's almost like this liberating thing where that's against what they want. They want us to be like Iran. They want to obliterate sex. But you can't win against sex. I think sex is almost this like engine that cannot be stopped.
Greg,
humans love sex so much that
Greg,
if you try to repress it, it'll be like prohibition in the
Greg,
30s.
you can't get rid of sex, otherwise you get rid of the human race.
I'm not talking about sexual acts, but just like even looking at beautiful naked bodies, pornography, whatever, sexy commercials. It's like deep down, those people would love to ban those things. They don't, the evangelical type Christian people, they're like, I don't like this. It's like just like the Taliban and the Iranians. They did succeed
You keep
in
saying the
obliterating it.
Iranians. Do you have a thing about the Iranians?
Well, they live in a theocracy.
Okay.
Luckily, we're not a theocracy yet, but I do see some scary things that when I watch The Handmaid's Tale, which I'm a fan of, I do get a little scared sometimes. I always get like, oh, fuck. This is a little too real.
So it just proves that you are a victim of advertising, is what this proves.
I don't know if I'm a victim, but I actually think that, like, sex will always sell. Sex will actually, like, conquer those people. People will basically rebel because they're like, fuck you guys. I want to see a woman in a bikini at least every now and then. There's nothing, I like that. Any government that tells me I can't see that, some theocracy that comes up, I'm going to be like, fuck you. Come on.
You're having an argument that doesn't have an opposing side, Greg.
What do you mean? There's many people in America who do not like that. The evangelical Christians don't like sexuality in TV
you're
and
saying
movies.
That all right, whatever. Brendan, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was just laughing because downstairs right now, the wife, the daughter, and the mother-in-law are watching the Donna Reed show on Netflix.
How apropos.
Donna Reed. Well, yes. And she never had sex.
Oh, but Donna Reed is hot as hell. Come on. For that time and place.
She was cute in her day, yes. Now she's probably attractive to men her age.
I think she's probably dead.
I think she's dead, yeah. To necrophiles, she's attractive.
Why do we have to do... Come on.
Sure, Greg.
Necrophiliacs.
Go further down that rabbit hole, Greg. Why don't you? Is this another hidden passion of yours that we need to know about?
I don't know. Any point.
Do we need to call the cops on you?
It depends, any situation. Who knows?
Stick to socks, dude.
Speaking of
Stick to
rabbit
socks.
holes,
I will.
he'll even have sex with rabbit holes.
I
So,
have a rabbit.
Tree knots.
tree nuts.
Tree knots.
They can be very erotic.
Honeycomb, sure.
If there's no bees in there, yeah.
Well, bees makes it more fun, doesn't it, Greg?
If I was a masochist, yeah.
Do a
I
lot of
guess.
dodging. It's the dodging part you have to work on. Just like,
But I think sex always wins. That's what I was trying to say.
okay, but what was it? Was it losing against something?
Well, people like it's lost in Iran. Like women can't even show their ankles.
I
They
think
have
they're
to wear.
still having sex in Iran. They're still
They
having
are.
young Iranians.
They're having sex, but I'm saying
Yes.
sexuality and the appreciation of eroticism and
They
sexuality.
probably
That's
still have that appreciation. It's just probably between the family members. Well, specifically the man and the woman, the husband and the wife.
hopefully, yes, hopefully.
Not all
But
of the
I'm
family, or even the dead family members. We're not talking about those either. So, the point
No.
is that I don't understand your point. I don't know what you were arguing against because we weren't arguing against you.
I think I
No,
have.
I didn't think you were.
Oh,
I
I
was
think
just
I've
making a point.
teased. I think I've teased the point out of what Greg is saying.
okay. Tease it more.
Thank you, Brendan.
Sure.
I need that.
I think it's an interesting, and this goes both directions. Where does sexuality and sexual expression end, and exploitation or the I can never say this word.
Objectification?
Objectification. Thank you. Of women begin. Meaning, is if a woman shows herself off and whatever, that's fine. She's expressing her sexuality. If I look at it and go, wow, she's very attractive, I'm now being a pig. I think the real question with advertising, culture, movies, politics is where do those things begin and end? Where do we decide when something is someone expressing themselves sexually and somebody taking advantage of their expression by going, that looks pretty good, when in fact the person doing that was doing it because they know they look pretty good. Does that make sense?
To a degree, it's like that whole
To a degree. Okay, good.
it's the whole existentialist argument about how can you get close enough to something if you keep going by halves without actually touching the thing, and what point do you touch a thing? In other words, you're 5 feet away from something, divide that by 2, and then you're 2.5 feet away from something, and then divide that by
That's Zeno's paradox. That's called
It's a whose paradox?
Zeno's paradox.
Was that
the
like
Greek
a
philosopher
so that was
with an
he also-
X?
I was thinking it was a pizza delivery place.
It sounds like it, a Greek restaurant.
Greek pizza.
Zeno's paradox.
Get some pasticcio.
Yeah, you'll never reach the wall. If you're 5 feet from the wall and you always have it, technically, philosophically,
So you can never
You
get
won't-
there. So I think
yeah, because
it's a similar concept because it's like where is the line drawn between appreciation and a perviation,
perviation,
right?
It's a
It's
fine
like
word.
a perviation.
I just made that one up.
It's a good word. I think
I'm
it's
so
useful.
proud. Anyway,
It's a good word.
Yes. Anyway, so I think it's a legitimate statement. It's like how do you stop yourself from overly appreciating some other person?
I can tell you, as a middle-aged man, and I hate to admit it, I'll walk into whatever the mall or God forbid go down to the beach, and this very attractive young lady walks by in a bikini, and I go, and I'm like, I could be her father. But the point is, it's a horrible sort of feeling, because it's like you can't sort of resist it. You can try, you can pretend, you can pay lip service to it. But if she walks by and she's looking pretty good, even though she's 22, you're gonna look.
Well, I've kind of found a way to rise above those particular temptations.
Saltpeter.
I didn't say temptation. I didn't
Some
say I walked up
limestone.
and
A little
I
bit of
didn't
limestone.
grope her. I mean,
Well, no,
I
but
just-
I'm saying that even to not even be having a temptation to be attracted to, and it's a weird thing. But let me put
Tell me.
let me put a perspective on it.
I want to
So-
know this.
I'm listening, Buddha.
It's all right. So let's take the spirit of the individual out of the body. It's just basically a lump of flesh, right? In other words, the girl's not walking around. It's just like this thing laying on the ground. And so in that moment, it's the same thing as a dead chicken or another dead animal to some extent. So if you don't have any attraction towards a cow or a pig or a chicken, you can also not have an attraction to a human.
Is is this like thinking about your grandmother so that you last longer when you're having sex? Same theory.
Dead chicken.
Dead
No,
chick.
no,
I
it's
want
more.
to
It's
live
just
it
more.
longer.
It's basically just eliminating a desire for something
Not
because
a beautiful woman isn't a dead chicken. That's just nobody would get aroused by a dead chicken. But a beautiful woman is
but
arousing.
if
I
you
mean,
take
there's
if you take the individual parts of the woman, like there's a leg. Now the leg in and of by itself is just this
that's
leg.
aesthetically pleasing and it's
Okay,
beautiful.
fine. You can admire a chicken leg too if you want. That doesn't mean you have to be
Because I
physically
want to eat it, not because I want to
okay.
fuck it.
Okay, well that's good, and I'm happy to hear that about you. It makes me feel a little bit better
Even though I want to fuck dead people, but
about
but I won't fuck dead chicken.
There went the pizza
I draw the line
sponsorship.
there.
there's
Dead chicken.
there's the line that Greg has drawn. So now we know what he won't do.
So, so I hear what you're saying, Matt. So you're saying that like if you and I, if you flew down here to Clearwater and you and I went over to the beach,
Uh-huh.
we're by ourselves. We're not with our wives. We're just by
Yeah.
ourselves. We're
Uh,
walking down the boardwalk,
right.
and a couple of 24-year-old girls come bouncing down the way in
Yes.
bikinis.
Bounce.
You're thinking about dead chickens?
Well, I'm just saying this is like a mindset I've been trying to develop for myself, so that like I don't have any
Oh,
desire,
okay.
Yeah.
you know.
So
So
this is a work in progress.
yes,
This
it's
goes back
definitely
to
it's a
my
work in progress.
Yeah.
It's like it
thinking
came about.
grandma.
You know, it's just because these days with advertising, there's so many frickin' ads that have girls in thongs, and I'm like staring at these things on these different shows in these ads, and I'm like, and there's that's what they've started looking like to me. They've started looking like
Dead chickens.
chicken legs.
I'm gonna
I'm like, and
put
they're
a
just like
thong on a
this
dead chicken for you.
this part,
For your
you know, it's
birthday.
like this part here, and I'm like, and then you go, all right, so why do they have a thong? I'm like, for one thing, like for me, that's kind of the grossest part of an individual is that area, you know, up in where we're talking, and
Your
so
buttocks.
Suddenly you're a prude? What area are you talking about, Matt?
the butt
You
plug
don't like
area,
buttocks?
The butt? Okay.
the butt
Oh, the
plug
butt plug
area is basically.
get
what
it.
In other words, where
Are,
the
are you
feces.
zeroing in on the actual asshole?
I'm zeroing in on the stuff that comes out of it. Is basically
Poop.
yes. So in other words, that's what comes out of there, and it's my least pleasant thing really associated with humans. Personally, I have a
So
thing
you're a
about
boob
it.
man.
What's
You're a
that?
tit man. You're a
He's
tit
an-
man. You're
he's
saying.
not an-
No,
he
what
has
I'm
a-
saying
not
is
an ass
I am
man.
anti-feces, is what I'm saying.
No, we all are.
I don't know that we all. I mean, the three
A
of us.
lot of
Yes,
people like
I'm assuming.
asses. A lot of people love women's asses, but they're not pro poop.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm having a hard time connecting. Like, that girl's ass looks nice. Oh my God, she poops out of that ass. I'm not following.
Well, you
Keep
need to
enlightening me.
get-
I'm listening.
follow it down further into the hole. You'll understand what I'm
Into
talking
the
You really
hole.
want to use hole?
It's
Well, that's
apropos. It
what
works.
that's basically what I'm talking about. It's like what
Yeah,
comes
yeah.
out of there, and that's the thing. And I go, I'm not into that type of thing. So it makes it easier for me to go. It's a chicken leg. It's just
So following this logic, Matt, if you look
yes,
at a nice pair of female breasts,
yeah.
do you think about breastfeeding?
Yeah, lactating milk.
That's not something
Going
that
out of them?
happens nearly every day to every female.
Lactating milk.
But I have thought about it. Yes, I have a thing about human fluids. I have kind of an issue. That's why I could never be gay because it's like that totally like grosses the crap out of me. So
I get like I'm not into anal, but I do like a woman with a nice ass.
Uh-huh.
Wait a minute. Time out.
it's a chicken
How
leg.
is being gay more pro-human fluid
No,
than being heterosexual?
pro-human. I'm not pro-human fluid.
I know you're anti-human fluid, and you said that's why you can't be gay.
Yeah, because
Yes.
vaginas excrete fluid, or I'm sorry, excrete. They make fluid when we do oral sex.
Right, but that's a different thing.
Oh,
Yeah,
I see.
yeah.
So-
It's a different thing. And don't get me wrong. I'm not a huge fan of that either. So So, so there you go. Yeah, I'm just
Yeah.
stating that if you're making an attempt to not have feelings for someone who is not your spouse, or and you want to just be like you generally are, Greg, which is you say you're asexual, and I don't really believe it.
No, I'm
Um,
not totally. I mean, I just want to be by myself.
well, that's very different.
It is. I don't know
That's
what it is. They have to make a new name for
that's
what I
called being
am.
a hermit.
No,
It's
no. I mean, I've had opportunities that I've turned down because I was just like, nah, I'll just go bad.
okay. Well,
I'm done with this.
okay. I'm not. That's a different podcast. Another episode for later is
Yes.
dealing with that because that's something that's kind of interesting. I don't know how long we'll go with it, but I'm afraid it might go into the very dark direction that this particular
Yeah.
podcast has gone.
A lot of sock talk, dead chicken talk will happen.
Yeah, I think
Okay,
So
I think whatever
let's
listeners
go
we
back to what you were
had
saying.
prior to this particular podcast, we will no longer be having those listeners
I don't think so. Sex sells,
after
Matt.
this podcast.
Sex sells. People, this might be our highest rated podcast
There's no
ever.
sex going on here, though.
We're
This is
talking
just,
about sex. People just like sex, even just
We're-
talking about it.
right, but we also
I-
talked about
I-
other things too. Sorry.
I think that there could be a lot to be said for Matt's 10 steps to avoiding being attracted to women on the beach.
That's
by
my
thinking about dead
Cosmopolitan
chickens
article.
and shit.
That-
Could
yeah,
be a whole.
that's my column in Cosmopolitan.
I think it could be a whole book. You know,
Look at women as dead chickens. The first step. Look at them as butcher meat.
It's like
in
you're
the
in a
butcher counter.
society where it's frowned upon to ogle, right?
Yes,
It's frowned
but
upon to
everyone loves
stare.
it.
oh,
be honest.
sure. But
Everyone
I'm
loves
not,
it.
I mean, look, you know, I've been to the, I've been in situations where I've been with another guy of similar age.
What?
I know.
That's
well, not
crazy
sexually,
talk. Oh, okay.
but they stare. It's gross. Now that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying I'm trying to stop myself from like going, oh my god.
God,
That's
look
not
at
what
the
I'm
mole on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to make the woman uncomfortable. Definitely,
No.
yeah. You don't want
no.
that. You don't want to be like, oh,
But
she
all
sees
women
me,
also
and I'm
have
gonna keep
different
staring.
standards that they're willing to accept too, and you never know
Yes.
what it's going to be.
Oh, for
Mhm.
sure. And if
Yeah.
you're 25 and a 50-year-old man, you know, if you observe him looking at you, it's usually not a positive.
Right.
No.
I'm not speaking from personal
But the
experience.
50-year-old man probably thinks he's still 18 in his
Not
head.
me.
I
Not
don't
me.
either. I'm like,
if-
I feel so bad about this.
You
That
feel
girl's very
old
attractive,
now?
but I shouldn't look at her. I'm very
Yeah.
old, and I'm very unattractive. If I was a
Yes.
very hot, like silver fox type guy, like George Clooney, I'd be like, yeah, maybe I could stare a little longer, 2 seconds longer. She'll probably be flattered. But-
Really flattered.
Well, George, you think many women would care if George Clooney was checking them out? They'd probably be like, wow.
I think,
George Clooney's
I think
checking me out.
again, it depends upon the woman.
That's
Well,
what I mean.
Well, of course, Mr. Logical. It would depend upon the woman.
George
Well, at
Clooney
least you're
is a very.
recognizing that there's logic involved in the insanity I've been
George
talking
Clooney
about
seems
today.
like a
But
cool
I'm just
guy
saying that-
where he wouldn't make it uncomfortable. George Clooney seems like a nice dude who wouldn't do that. Stare too long. you
Well,
know?
at least he's got you believing that, Greg. So
I'm sure that George Clooney could stare, being a multimillionaire and a movie star, he could probably stare at 24-year-old girls, and I think the vast majority of them would be okay with it.
I do too.
I'm unwilling
true.
to make that particular assessment because I can't.
Because you're Mr. Logical.
Well,
That's
you
your
know,
new name on the show. Mr.
true.
Logical.
I don't think that would fly. I'm not going to accept that particular appellation.
Especially after your Adam and Eve argument. Yeah.
Oh, God,
That
let's
was
not
very
get back to
logical.
that. Let's not get back to the UFOs.
No.
please.
I did not say UFOs. I did never bring up UFOs. Those
No.
objects are identified. There'd be
Okay, let's get back to sex, everybody. Let's talk about you and me. Let's talk about all the things. I don't know the rest of the lyrics of that song. Sorry. I was trying to do that song.
Are you
Salt
being
and
salt
pepper.
and pepper?
Yes, I was trying to be salt and pepper. But I was neither.
That's
So
true.
you were like paprika?
But your beard is both.
I wasn't even Spinderella.
Your
I was just.
your facial hair is both salt and pepper, and so is mine.
It is.
Mine
So-
has gotten a lot whiter.
Yeah, you're
as
pretty
time's
just
gone.
full on Santa now, Matt.
This is freaking quarantine. I had said I wouldn't shave until it was all over, and it's still going on. And I'm like,
Was that your protest, like Gandhi's
yes, it's my
not
own
eating
personal
when he was in prison?
internal protest to being stuck in the house for 4 freaking
I
months.
will not shave
It's not
until.
even being stuck in the house. It's like not being able to work for 4 months. So I'm like
Yeah,
shaving when I get to work legitimately again,
yeah.
as opposed to for just people who want to give me $1 or 2 on online for
I
karaoke.
miss your dandy mustache. You used to always have those amazing dandy-ish mustaches.
Oh, when I waxed.
Yeah, you had
Well,
a great mustache.
those days will
Like
come again.
Brazilian?
Yes, I keep my face in a Brazilian wax so that people know exactly what's coming out of my mouth.
It's just trying to bring it back to sex.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Doesn't
sexy.
doesn't take much.
So I have a question. This kind of comes to, I think, a point that Greg made earlier.
I think you can just ask your questions without prefacing it with saying that it's a question.
Yeah, fuck you.
Mr. Logical.
I'm
You're
just
gonna
giving him
start.
I'm giving him the okay. He doesn't have
You're
to
gonna
go
start.
ahead.
Are you gonna start quibbling about my prepositions some more?
Only if you use them improperly again.
Mm. All right.
You know, we're allowed to quibble here, and squabble,
And Squabble
and
and
bicker.
Right.
Bicker.
So
It
here's my
happens.
next question,
All
and
right.
this
Do you want to tell us
is
that you're going to have a question before? Would you like to say, I'm going to tell you in a few minutes I'm going to have a question, and then I'll let you know when I'm about to have that question,
So
and
Matt's
then
doubling down on
seconds
this.
after that, I will also tell you that a question is coming, and then I'll ask the question. Is that, I mean, because you can do lots of prefaces to it, or you can just ask the question.
right now. All I'm doing is thinking about dead chickens while I look at your face.
I just know that that means that he's intensely attracted to my face, and that's why he's got to think about dead chickens.
No, because
Yes.
I don't view sexuality obviously in the same way you do. I see an attractive girl. I see an attractive girl. I don't try to imagine a dead chicken. I mean, that makes no
It,
sense at all.
it's not really that I'm imagining them as dead chickens. I'm just saying that I'm just kind of seeing. I'm taking a less gestalt point of view. It's no longer like the sum of the
I think
parts.
it's
It's the
less
parts.
Gestalt and more Jeffrey Dahmer.
This is food. I'm hungry and horny at the
Yeah,
same
I didn't really
time.
mean it in that regard. I could have said ostrich.
Oh,
I could have
she's
said.
attractive. I'm gonna imagine her as something I might eat.
I'm just
After
going
I
to
fuck
imagine
her, I
all
will
of the
eat her.
body parts separate from the actual body.
Oh,
That's what I'm looking at.
you're not helping your case here,
I
buddy.
was going along with what you were saying. I don't really have a case either way.
No.
So, no. I don't
The,
believe half the things I say. Come on.
Brendan, please ask your question, even though
No, he
Matt's
doesn't
gonna.
have a question. He just has a
Yes, he
question about saying
does.
a question.
But you keep saying he doesn't have a question, but I think he does.
I think he does. He just won't say it. He just has to let us know he's going
Because
to have
you
a
keep
question.
saying make prefaces. I
does
think he's done with his prefaces.
sexuality, does the over sexuality, whether it be in movies or in advertising, contribute to the type of over sexualized attitudes, viewpoints, whatever that people have? A lot of the conservative Christians will say that the reason they want all of this stuff banned from, TV, like, nude scenes and sex movies and all that kind of stuff, and even non-Christians, people that are like super anti-pornography and that sort of thing, not, is their logic behind it is that if you expose someone to that content more than they would normally be exposed to it, that you're basically hypersexualizing them personally and then causing some sort of psychological problems.
I
That's
think
utter rubbish.
you think it's rubbish, Greg?
I'm kidding. But I was saying, like, I really
So
think
you're
it's
saying
in all of
show
us.
pornography to 5-year-olds? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, like, they shouldn't see that without context. I think if a kid sees a naked boobie,
Uh huh.
it's not going to hurt them, like a Playboy magazine. But
They
I
just
just
think
want to
it's a
say,
pepperoni or something.
a quick story. I knew this guy who was a
Oh,
teacher of mine,
this was an
and
interesting question, and you're having to tell us a story. Fine.
well, it's going to answer the question.
Okay, good.
He served time. He was in Eastern Europe during the Cold War. There was no sex in the media. The Russians were very prudish. The Soviet Union, and yet he said that those people were so poor and bored that it was like a key party every night,
A
like
key
in the
party?
early. like the swinger shit, like in the early 70s,
Hold
and
on, I've
like,
never heard of the term key party. What is key party?
oh, that during the swinger time in the 70s, a key party was where people would go to parties and put a key in a jar, and then whatever key you grabbed, you would go home with some other husband or wife. They were swingers. So it was like, oh, you got his key, you're fucking him tonight.
Never heard that
And
story before.
it's a thing. Yeah, it was
Okay.
for 5 years. It was a thing in the 70s. But
And
he
yet
said
you know
Eastern
about
Europe.
it for some reason.
I've seen movies. I pay attention to culture and I read things. Sorry.
I
But he
caught
said
the
Eastern Europe.
implication, you bastard. All right, keep
Eastern
going.
Europe. I
Matt,
know.
let him. Could
He
you
said
let him
Eastern Europe.
finish? Jesus Christ!
No, that was a valid point. If you didn't know what Key Party was, I mean, I just thought that was a thing.
You've got a
But-
computer, Matt. Google it. Just
Yeah,
go
Google it.
Key Party right
But
now.
he said in Eastern Europe where there was no
key
sexy
tea party.
advertising. We're talking about like Iron Curtain. There was no sexy anything. The Soviets were not into sexy. If you saw a woman on a movie, she had a full military uniform on and a parka maybe to cover up anything. And he said they were the most promiscuous people because they had nothing. So they would get drunk as fuck. They were all drunks. They would just drink vodka and go home and have indiscriminate sex every night because they had nothing to buy. Even if they had some money, even if they were kind of higher up in the party, there was nothing to do, nothing fun to buy. Sex was the entertainment. Humans love sex. I don't think
Right. So
advertising or corporations can make us want sex more than we do.
Why do
Right.
humans love sex, Greg?
Because we're wired that way. I don't know. I'm not God.
Haha.
I don't even believe in God.
What?
But I'm not Mother Nature. We do. We
But-
fucking
so-
love it.
But why do you think there's a reason why we love sex?
Because of Darwinian continuation of the species.
Okay,
It
yeah,
was-
so basically, if there wasn't pleasure associated with sex, people wouldn't have it, right?
Yeah, well, something about Mother Nature basically said, we're going to make this feel really good so you keep fucking. And
Right. Yeah.
Uh,
Otherwise, it would be like shaking
making
hands
babies.
for 20 minutes.
yeah,
You know?
everyone was just like, fuck that. I don't want a kid. I don't want a baby.
It's like you
That's
wouldn't
a
be doing
work.
that with another human if it didn't feel good, you know. Yeah, so I
Yeah,
think it
it's
has
kind
to be
of-
shoved in. So it's the question becomes then: at what point do you engage in your animalistic instincts, or reject those animalistic instincts?
Well, hopefully you have a moral, ethical compass where, this is consensual and this is good,
Yeah.
or you don't.
So there comes
That's-
the consensual part. So, like, say you're watching a TV show and something comes on that you find to be against your own particular beliefs, that becomes non-consensual. You've just been visually raped.
Whoa,
Are we
wait
talking
a
about
minute.
sock
Hold
talk
on,
now?
Hold on. How did we get to consensual?
He brought it up.
I did. But I'm saying like fantasies, pornography, I think that all rules are off. What's in your imagination? I've known women who've told me their sexual fantasies that are fucking sick and insane. I think in your own brain, if you're masturbating, sorry to be coarse.
Wait, you
'cause
masturbate
I like to be,
in your brain?
well, that's a big part that starts it with my erotic imagination.
That's where you actually do your masturbating, is in your brain.
I wish I could. No, it involves another
It's
organ.
certainly less messy and wouldn't require socks.
That's true. Less of
Yeah,
those
but I'm
fluids.
saying like all bets are off when it comes to your imagination, what you're doing in your fantasies.
I realize I'm starting to sound like that guy in Doctor Strangelove. The
Oh,
general.
vital bodily juices
Vital bodily
or fluids. I mean,
I'm like,
Just fluid.
fluoride is the demon.
okay, maybe this is just my crazy theory, but I think when it comes to your own imagination, all bets are off. You're not offending anyone, you're not hurting anyone, and there's some weird
If you
shit out there.
communicate some of those things, you
Yes,
certainly
if it
could
offends-
offend people. Yes.
You could, yes, but I don't do that. I don't say, hey, I had some crazy sex fantasy that was very offensive last night in my own brain, in the privacy of my own home.
Uh-huh.
I mean, there was a time when gay men couldn't have sex with each other in their own home. They weren't flaunting it, if you will. It was just like, we still are going to put you in jail. It's like, why do you care? This is what we like to do, even though you think it's an aberration in the eyes of God, that a man shall lay with a man. People used to think that was like, put that guy in jail.
Uh-huh.
And I know this is a little different because I'm just talking about myself.
I'm now trying to figure out how we got here.
We're talking about sex.
I'm in Brendan's area now. Like,
We're talking about
I'm
sex.
slightly confused.
Well, here's the thing, which is oftentimes a complete suppression or abstinence of a thing actually can create an increase in desire and manifestation of that thing. So like, in terms of America and young people's binge drinking, it's way bigger of a problem in the U.S. than it is in Europe, where kids drinking alcohol is not necessarily considered some sort of taboo thing, and there's teenagers are drinking wine with their parents at dinner, and it's just not a big thing.
Yeah.
But here in America, where it's like kept on the down, it's like the old Catholic girl thing. If we repress something that is maybe not with alcohol, but with sex native to the person, if we repress it, are we really doing any favor? Versus if we explore it to some ridiculous extent, then we're doing damage. That I think is really the question when it comes to sex in advertising, sex in movies, and sex in TV. Having raised 4 kids and 2 girls, and one is 11, these things definitely weigh on my like I'll watch movies and I'll watch ahead of time to go, is there anything sexually objective, specifically weirdly sexual in this movie? Is it something that maybe Dagny could watch?
Can I ask you guys, as parents, you've had kids, I haven't. Do you care, like, if, like, let's say your 6-year-old was watching a movie and, an innocuous nipple shows up? Will you be just like, oh, fuck, my kid saw a nipple?
I think I'd have an
Even
issue
though
if there was like an evil nipple that showed up. Like a nipple that
scary
was going
nipple
around like
that
stabbing
give them
people.
nightmares?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I would have more of a problem with that than an innocuous one.
Yeah. Because I once worked
I mean, how many other kinds of nipples are there, Greg, in terms of
well, they're just nipples.
innocent nipples?
That's
or
all they are.
evil
They're
nipples. But you
Oh,
specifically
you brought
said
up the
innocuous.
evil. No,
You said innocuous. To me, that
Yes.
often implies that there's.
Oh God, here we
there's
go.
an
This
opposing.
grammar guy is hung up on some
Grammar guy.
goddamn adjective now.
I've got. Yes, grammar is important, Brendan. It's how
I
we
do like
communicate
grammar myself.
things.
But Matt, I was just saying
It's how we
innocuous
communicate
because in our
concepts for
country,
crying out loud. So
I was
he
just
made a
saying
concept,
innocuous.
and I assume that there's an opposing concept to that.
Okay, Matt,
It's
I was
not
saying
a wrong
I think
thing.
I think this is the preeminent just quibble aspect of things. We're all
That's our
over
show.
the place with concepts that have absolutely no bearing on anything, including imagining dead chickens when seeing women. And you're going to quibble about the man's use of an adjective. That's my objection.
There is a reason why these law offices are called what they are called. It's
So Matt's
because
doing his
this
job.
happens.
Matt is doing his
Yes.
job right now to quibble
I'm sorry.
over little things. That's what the
disagree
definition of
with
quibble
that,
is.
but
An argument over small little things.
this is our format so that our true natures can come out.
But Matt, can I
Right, so
explain
I guess
myself?
I'm just
I-
squabbling.
Yes, you're the squabbler.
Okay.
I'm the bickerer, and Matt's the quibbler.
All right. Well, I think we've defined our roles.
Matt, I just wanted to say that I was saying innocuous because in our culture, nipples are not innocuous. A lot of people think that's beyond the pale. Like,
All the flying nipples.
they've never
that are
been.
going,
They've
picking
never
up
been on.
children from the street and dropping them
Yes,
in other people's
I'm
homes.
saying I didn't think it needed to be said that there's no evil nipples, but in our culture, nipples are not innocuous.
Well,
Many people take much offense at a nipple. Like that's why you've never seen one on
Are they?
network
They're
TV.
not offended by the nipple itself.
They are. Oh, are you serious? They are.
No, it's the nudity aspect of it, which
Yes.
ties in to a broader
A nipple
picture.
is nudity. Yes, a nipple is nudity. Even if there's no sex involved, even a
Although
woman just shows a nipple.
it's a very odd thing for people to get offended that they're willing to see all the other part of the breast, but that you show the nipple and suddenly it's this strange thing, and you wonder where that comes from.
That's full frontal. That's the thing.
Right, but
Now
you
you're talking
you
full
could show
frontal.
half the breast.
Yeah.
Actually, you could just
That's
show
full frontal.
like this part of the breast.
You show almost all of it.
Where
Like,
you just show
just a
the nipple.
small
I'm just saying,
bikini.
like right through here.
Yeah, yeah.
Through the hands. I'm saying it's an audio podcast. I'm expecting people to know what I'm doing. So you can say, look through your fingers 2 inches apart, so you can only see the nipple. And yet, with that, if you have the nipple just by itself, without being attached to the breast, would that be offensive? Is it only offensive
is in
when it's
America.
attached to the breast?
It is in
I
America.
believe that an unattached nipple would be very offensive.
You cannot show that on network TV even
Well,
now.
Facebook will basically prevent nudity from being shown, but I have seen Photoshop things
I'm just saying that if there is a
where
nipple,
people have
it
shown
has
a
to be
woman without
attached.
a nipple, and they'll show
Yeah.
that. And there was this one guy who did one Whereas like these flying nipples were all around a breast that didn't have a nipple on it, and that was able to stay up
Huh.
without being flagged on.
That surprises me. I would think that
Well,
would be
I
taken
think it's
down.
because the nipples were flying with the nipple
Yes.
part pointed up as opposed to pointing at you. I think if it's pointing at you, it's more offensive than if it's pointing up because it looks more like,
A
I don't know,
pepperoni slice.
looks more
You can
It's just
tell.
funny. Just
You can tell it
zipping
was a
through the
nipple.
air, all these flying
Little
nipples.
flying discs.
Right.
yeah, it's just that the AI couldn't comprehend
Yeah.
disembodied nipples. It
The
hadn't been taught
censoring
that yet.
AI.
And I think it's been everybody's always pushing the boundaries, and I think that takes us back into where sex sells. So it becomes, at what point is the line going to no longer be able to be moved whenever it comes to advertising or what you're being seen on television?
I don't think it ever will be. I think they'll keep pushing the boundaries because it'll always sell.
So you're
Like if
saying
there's a
eventually full-blown pornography will be the norm
if
on
it's accepted
television?
by the people and like who knows where
Well,
culture is going to
you're
go.
saying that the line will never be stopped.
Well, people want to see it, believe me,
Uh-huh.
deep down. But I mean, we might become Gilead in Handmaid's Tale in 10, 20 years,
Well, if you want some
and
weird irony
not
in
be
terms of
allowed.
Gilead, you know that one of the companies making the coronavirus vaccine is called Gilead?
See, you see, Matt. This is what I was talking about. It's here.
Wait,
That
let me get my
proves it.
Ties in. No, I've caught it right off the bat whenever I was watching the briefings way back in March. It's like this
Yeah.
company called Gilead was like on the forefront of working on the vaccine for this.
That's why you shouldn't wear masks. Because look, you're fighting the Handmaid's Tale.
Oh,
Every time you wear a mask, you're helping the Handmaid's Tale people. The Gileadians.
Gileadians.
The Gileadians. So
Gileadites.
I
That's a
think
word.
that
That sounds like biblical.
Gileadlings.
The
I think
Gileadites.
there's always going to be a place. I think that the future of this is going to be a lot better in some ways, in that the way that media is being driven, for the most part, there's going to be choices that parents can make. There's paywalls behind things. It's not like in the old days when, you just turned on television, whatever was whatever was there, and that's too bad for you.
Yeah.
You can make choices about what your kids see or not see. And I think we'll only be able with technology to get more granular about that. And so if you're a very strict person who thinks that unguarded nipples is a huge problem, then you just
Innocuous nipples?
innocuous nipple. I didn't want to say it.
Innocuous. Wait, you have to throw
Obvious-
innocuous flying nipples.
Obvious nipples are a problem for you. Then you can just filter out all shows that have obvious nipples.
And to a degree, but let's take that back a second, though, because when my kids were young, the issue wasn't so much the programs. Yeah, you have a choice of other programs, but it's the commercials that are the worst offenders, because you can't really filter those out except right after you've noticed the thing that you have a problem with.
Right.
So it's like, where does that line end? Where does that line get drawn in terms of selling sex?
Do you have Netflix?
I have Netflix now, but Netflix wasn't around when I had little kids. At least you bought the DVDs.
Right. I'm saying moving forward, you're on a subscription based. I'm sure that at some point there will be a Netflix for Christians. You know what I mean? There'll be a content delivery service that's like 24/7, the 10 Commandments and good Christian movies and uplifting stories and zero nipples.
I think that's called like the Hallmark Channel, isn't it?
Yeah, I was just going to say that. That's kind of the Hallmark Channel.
Yeah, but the Hallmark Channel is still on network TV. It doesn't have its own distribution, so it still has commercials.
Yeah.
But be that as it may, okay. Mr. Quibble.
Squabble.
The point is that I think that people will be able to make choices. The real question is, what are advertisers going to do, given that they're getting squeezed further and further out of mass distribution?
Have you guys seen this, though? I've seen sexuality just being more and more accepted in mass media. I mean, there's shit on TV now, network TV. Like, I can't believe I saw, what was that show about the Silence of the Lambs guy? Hannibal. I was a Teenage Gorehound. I read Fangoria magazine. I watched all the
Oh
slash
yeah, that's
movies.
on network TV. I love that show, by the
Yes,
way. But I'm
it's a
like,
good
I
show,
was so
but there's
surprised to
shit on
see it on
there that.
network television.
And
Yeah,
I got the DVD, the season. I had no idea it was a network TV show. I thought it was some HBO show.
yeah.
I
So
watched
did
the whole
I.
season without knowing.
Yeah,
And at the end of it, I was like, "Oh, this was on NBC or something." I was like, "Whoa, they show that now on at
I
10
know.
o'clock
It
at
was
night or
nuts. The
9?"
stuff. I mean, just
But
yeah.
still, even the
But we should
sexuality
save
was
that
way more.
concept. I think for another podcast. We should talk about
I think this is
violence.
part about the Puritan thing, though. Like,
Yeah.
America is like always been okay with violence, but sexuality is like so demonized, and it does
Right.
lead to a repression that makes us even more perverse.
Yeah.
Like when you repress
Could
sexuality,
be.
it comes out in bad ways.
Right. Like socks.
No, that's a good way. It doesn't hurt anyone. But America, look at
Oh
our
yeah.
history.
You know, you
Except
heard
for
me
your
talking
mom
about
who
it
has to
today.
clean up after you.
Yeah, Greg.
Matt, you don't have to wash my socks, so don't worry about it. I take
I
care
know,
of
but I have to wash the thought out of my head.
Just
I
think
get it.
about dead chickens, Matt.
Yeah, that'll help. That always
All
helps.
right.
Dead chickens.
Well, I
But
think
I'm saying, like, in
yes.
America, it's like what our Puritan beginnings, I think, like, yes, we've been a very pure nation as far as, like, you can't see a nipple on TV, like in England, and yet we have more wars, even if they're called police actions sometimes, but we've never stopped going to war for, like, centuries. It's like we're always fucking up, going into some country with military action, even though it's not a war, it's not World War
Well,
II.
I think we can certainly delve into war and violence in another episode.
Okay, I was just saying,
I mean,
it's
there's
part
a
of the
lot.
Puritan
There's a
thing.
lot of
I'm
meat
done.
on those particular bones that we
Mhm.
could certainly ignore in another podcast.
No
I do
chicken
think it's part of the
reference.
sex cells, though, Matt, because
Uh-huh.
I think
War,
the sex
war
cells
cells.
more so well, definitely war cells, but
Sex
sex
cells
cells
war.
more in America because we are so repressed. So it's not like we could have access
Well,
to
people
like,
do love those photos of the ladies in the bikinis holding up machine guns,
oh God, they do. Yeah,
especially
I
with
like
the
those.
American flag behind them.
I don't even like guns, but those are pretty hot.
Already, you've been sold on the concept, Greg. Remember, it's just
Yes, I want to buy a machine gun
just
now.
it's just
I'm
dead,
sold.
just dead chickens holding guns in front of
Well,
the flag.
that's your point of view. That's a hot woman holding a machine gun. It looks good.
All right, well, we've done about an hour and a half now, so I think we can come to an appropriate conclusion, unless you guys want to delve into this further.
Should we have a final round?
Have we
Does
come
sex sell?
a final round?
Does
Well,
sex sell?
well, it's not that does sex sell. We know that it does to an extent, right?
Yeah.
It varies depending upon the product, because the product has to be a decent product too, and too much sex can, I think, detract people from a product. Also, remember those ads that Carl's Jr. used to do with the burgers and the girls in the bikinis just eating the burgers?
Sure.
Question
That worked
is,
for me, Matt.
did you go
I don't
out?
think they went too far.
Did you go out and buy Carl's Jr. burgers because of those
No,
ads?
but I told you, advertising never works on me. I don't get it unless it's some new information, like Carl's Jr. is a new product that you might like.
Okay, so my point is, right, it has to be the product. The sex gets you to listen, it gets
Yeah.
your attention, so you'll pay attention to the product. But the product has to have some quality for it to be maintained in the future.
That's a big thing with advertising, though. Is just get your attention, and hopefully people will come, and people do. But you said there was
Right,
a soap
but not for
product
all
in
products.
1905. But
Yeah.
remember, you said there was when you first started talking today, you said there was some soap that wasn't doing that well, but then
Yep.
they started doing these sexy ads.
Right.
It apparently seemed to work.
It was
Nobody really wanted that
Woodbury's
soap.
facial soap from.
Yeah, it wasn't that great a soap, but people responded to the advertising.
Well, we
which
don't
I
know that it
get.
wasn't. We don't know how great the soap was.
Well, you said it wasn't doing that well until
yeah,
they started this ad
the sales
campaign.
were low, but it could be they just had a bad advertising campaign.
Yeah,
Not because the product was bad. Well, it's like anything else. If you don't keep your name in the public view, people will forget about you. Gradually,
I never got that
sales
either.
will dip.
I'm never going to forget about McDonald's. I know they're there, but I
No,
keep
but
seeing
there's
McDonald's
ads
commercials.
there all the time.
I know, but believe me, if they stopped 10 years ago, I would know I could go to McDonald's to get a Big Mac. I don't understand.
Well, you
Why
would
McDonald's?
know, but new people wouldn't necessarily know.
New people, what, 4-year-olds?
No, the ones who are coming from other planets, dumbass.
Yes. No, apparently. But I'm sure 4-year-olds know about McDonald's. Their parents take them there.
Right, but
Advertising-
over time, people would forget. Yeah, now I mean they've created this global brand. I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm saying that for most people for most companies that don't have decades-long businesses, They need to keep putting their name out in front of you for
Yeah.
you to know them, and for
Right.
you to remember
McDonald's
them.
McDonald's problem is not necessarily you knowing that they exist at this point. McDonald's problem is staying relevant compared to Chick-fil-A, Burger King, Wendy's, and whatever, a dozen or more other fast food restaurants you can spend your money at. So it's really about the competitive marketplace and them saying, carving out whatever their niche is within that. I'm not going to, I'm going to go to Chick-fil-A because I'm a good Christian and they're a Christian organization. So
Yeah, you hate gay marriage, so that's
right.
where you're gonna go.
Well, that's
it's
why they're popular in Clackamas County. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a niche, and McDonald's versus Burger King, and how do they differentiate themselves? So that's why advertising is important to McDonald's. But advertising in general is all about getting attention. It's all about getting eyeballs, and nothing gets eyeballs more than sex and dead chickens.
Ergo, Chick-fil-A's campaigns.
Yep. Their
all
new commercial should be a dead chicken in a thong bikini, CGI walk dancing in a sexy
Well, it's kind
strut.
of like if you remember the music video from Peter Gabriel for Sledgehammer.
Yes.
Where at the
Did
end
you get
of
a
it,
boner from that? Did that make you hot? Were you like, oh?
No, Greg. The idea is it for be the opposite.
I know.
Not to be attracted to it. No, the point is that these are anthropomorphized chickens. They were dancing, with no legs, no heads, no feathers, and
it's quite repulsive. Yeah,
they're just chicken. Well, it's not even repulsiveness.
It was repulsive.
It's just like not being attracted to my computer either. It's just there's no emotion, there's no desire because it's not something that you would desire, right?
Well, but that's very different than a beautiful woman in a bikini.
But with women, because they're part of the human race and they're part of what makes they're the hugest part of what makes the human race continue, and because of the way that human beings are designed to attract the
they're quite important to the continuation of the species.
Yes, I said that, Greg. Thank you.
I know. I was just sorry.
You're just sorry? Yes, you are.
I'm a sorry sack of shit, but I was just trying to agree with you.
It's okay. I don't have a point anymore. I forgot it. So
I
only live for the moment, and then when the the memory goes. Listen.
Well, I gotta say though,
I
didn't like where your point was heading, Matt.
That's my pass.
Maybe that's why subconsciously I didn't like where your point was heading.
Oh, was that?
I don't get the dead chicken thing because even though it is like objectifying women is not right. It's kind of weird that like you just see a woman you don't even know, you have no emotional connection with, but she looks fucking beautiful. She's aesthetically pleasing.
I think this is where I was going, which is because of the nature of bodies, they're designed to propagate the human race. And so you see something that's attractive to you, you want to have sex with it to create new bodies. It's like that, like you said before, it's how we are wired. It's how the bodies are designed to create new bodies. We see something that looks good, want to have sex with. That's why a lot of times you see people with lots of different types of body types and sizes and attractiveness because we're all attracted to something different. We all have something that makes us go, wow, that's a really good looking person, whereas somebody else will go, that person's not good looking at all. And that's how you get so many different types of humans creating so many things. And I think that's why sex can't always sell to everybody, because everyone has different definitions of what's attractive to them. And if you start thinking of them as dead chickens, then you'll find I never even meant for people to be looked upon as
that you're a sick pervert. That's what you'll find.
They're supposed to be
you start looking as women
and chickens. But it's just the whole idea was just that you can desensitize yourself to the attractiveness.
I do get it.
Yeah, I think that's really my main point. Is you want to, if you can desensitize yourself to the thing that is making you go hubba hubba, and if you're saying hubba hubba, you've got a different issue.
Yeah, if you're saying hubba,
you're from the 1930s.
Right.
You gotta go back.
You're a time traveler.
Or
90 years old.
Yeah.
I will go, assuming I can still go to the beach here in Florida. If I can.
Your wife won't listen to this, so you're safe.
Oh, I'm totally safe. I will go to the beach, and I will attempt, namaste, to dead chickenize any females that I might find attractive.
That does not sound like a fun day at the beach to me.
You have to start making it more. I mean, imagine what doctors and nurses go through. They see naked bodies of all kinds all the time.
Yeah.
So I would
Yeah.
imagine they would have to desensitize themselves to being attracted because it could harm their occupation in some way if they followed through with these feelings of desire or what have you. Well, Greg,
Well,
thank you so much for
Well,
popping that in our ears.
not
Is there
follow
any other?
through with it,
Is there
but
any
you could
loud
still.
noise that you would like to make, Greg, that we should also pay attention
Here's
to?
the sound of me fucking a dead chicken.
Why can't you just sit still like we do throughout this thing, you
Because I have a cell phone where I don't
bastard?
have to.
It's
I'm
not a matter of
free.
having to. It's just you wind up adding.
I'm sorry.
You're like your
I
own
needed-
Foley stage. I'm going to expect you to start taking halves of coconuts and pretending there's horses at some point.
That could add something to the podcast. I might be.
Maybe, but I would
People
like
might
to.
like that.
I would like to have it like if you're going to do it, maybe let us know beforehand that it's going to
It was
happen.
a quick. That's all it was. It was quick.
It was in. I'm wearing headphones. It's in my ear.
I'm sorry.
I can hear lots of things because of the headphones, and I'm sure other people may or may not be listening to headphones. Well, I guess that's pretty open. They may or may not be listening to headphones when they listen to the podcast.
I apologize
They
to
will
our
ever
four
listen to this
listeners. I'm so
podcast
sorry.
again. Yes. By the
Don't
way,
worry.
I should make an announcement for anybody who's made it this far into the podcast. We do have an email address. If you have any hate mail you want to send us, it's qsblawoffices@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter at QSB Law Offices, so feel free to follow us if you're so inclined, or not, or flip us off, or whatever you want to do. If you want to complain about Greg making noises in the background, if you want to complain about me complaining about Greg making noise in the background, feel free to put it all there too. Anyway, so let's sum this up. Let's get to a conclusion if it's possible without us going on a tangent. So,
Sex sells. For sure.
is that it? Sex sells.
For sure. End
Always?
of discussion.
Always?
End of discussion.
Always?
Shut up. Sex sells. Always.
I
You're
don't.
wrong if
I,
you disagree with me. That's my position.
I say sex gets your attention. I can't say that it always sells. That's my point of view on that.
Brendan?
Sex
Bicker?
definitely sells. It won't sell beyond initial purchase, but it'll get somebody to buy something. But the more sex is used as a tool, the less it becomes effective. So I think you'll see more people using sex selectively in their advertising.
Yeah, I agree with you there.
I disagree. They haven't gone farther enough. They'll keep pushing it. They'll be like, let's have cunnilingus on this commercial for Burger King. Go down on the new Whopper.
More fellatio with your Q-tip commercials.
Again, if you really
It could
look at
happen.
That's
if you
right.
look at the way media is going and you get to a point where people can filter down to this content is the kind of content I want, Burger King making selective fellatio commercials is definitely a possibility.
And
Yeah.
not with our podcast, though. They won't. So not now, but maybe down the road, we'll get Burger King as a sponsor for fellatio.
But we're perfect for them. We've already laid the groundwork. They'll be like, these guys are pro fellatio and talking about any nasty things. Sure.
I think we're not pro fellatio. We're more prophylactic, Greg. Anyway, all right. That being the case,
That's for sure. I was thinking about dead chickens makes me never want to fuck again.
This has been the law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker Computer Telecast, where any advice has been designed purely for amusement and deep-sea diving. Please take a candy on your way out, pet the lion tamer, and subscribe to this computer telecast if you know what's good for you. The law offices of Quibble, Squabble, and Bicker deny all culpability in today's events and are not to be confused with real law offices that have a secretary and books and stuff. Thank you all. Have a good day.